Hello and welcome. I'm Carolyn Grimminger with the Public Affairs Forum at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin. Our program's mission is to nourish the mind and spirit and serve social justice. Our forums occur on most Sundays at noon and are free and open to the public. We encourage you to attend. Our church is physically located at 4700 Grover Avenue in Austin, Texas. For more information about our church and the forums, you can go to our church website at www.austinuu.org. At this time, I'd like to do a little introduction about Friendship Force. These are troubling times where it seems that many countries are beginning to look toward their own national interests in creating an atmosphere of fear and distrust of other people. We often wonder, how can we, in some small way, make the world a better place? How can we make people across nations have better understanding of each other so that we can build trust and security? It seems so insurmountable at times. How can we live our UU mission of nourishing souls, transforming lives, and doing justice to build our beloved community? And how can we do this in a positive manner and have a wonderful time while doing it? Our Unitarian members, Sally Scott and Joseph Hunt, and others, feel that they have a way in which we can put these positive aspirations into action. They are members of an organization that they feel match the goals and mission of the Unitarian Universalist Church. It's the Friendship Force International that has been working this mission for 40 years. They are part of the Leadership Council of the local Friendship Force. So let's welcome Sally and Joseph.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. I feel the main reason that I belong to Friendship Force is not only because I love to travel, but I like to travel with a purpose. And this purpose is creating peace by coming together with new friends of different cultures on a personal level. This open-minded respect of other cultures becomes the foundation of citizen diplomacy, and that we as ambassadors pledge to do. Our club also belongs to Global Austin, which hosts international visitors. I'm going to pause right now for
A
brief
video
presentation.
Presentation is an introduction to Friendship Force International. What is Friendship Force? It's a worldwide organization of around 16,000 ordinary people who formed into hundreds of individual clubs in over 60 countries spread across 6 continents. And together, this is Friendship Force International. As a truly international organization, it's not religious, it's not political, and it's not for profit. Its aim is to overcome the barriers that separate the nations of the world. In 1992, Friendship Force was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for its work building understanding between the people of the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Every year we operate around 300 travel events called Journeys. These are focused on creating mutual understanding, cultural education and learning, citizen diplomacy through homestays and personal friendships. These journey programs bring diverse people together into each other's cultures and homes to share one-of-a-kind experiences not available to regular tourists, personal encounters where strangers can become friends. We know that by experiencing different views, we can discover common ground. Friendship Force began in the US in the 1970s. Its founder was Wayne Smith, who lived in the city of Atlanta in Georgia. One day he had an idea to bring together the nations of the world in friendship by means of international travel. The novel element was the idea of homestays, where visitors would stay in the homes of local people. Rather than big hotels, which can often isolate travellers from the locals. The first official journey was in 1977 between Atlanta and Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK. This was an unusual event in several ways. A large number of people, almost 800, took part, and two groups exchanged at the same time between the two cities. In the group from the US was President Jimmy Carter and First Lady Rosalind Carter, who would become honorary chair of Friendship Force for many years. The event was a great success, and clubs sprang up all around the world. An amazing achievement from one man's simple idea. How does it work?
Okay, how does it work? Well, it works really well here. And we have been to numerous countries and numerous exchanges. Every year we have two domestic exchanges coming in, and we'd usually do 2 outgoing international exchanges. This year, the Sunshine Club from Australia is coming in May, and a domestic group from Lincoln, Nebraska is coming in April. We plan things with our neighboring clubs also, like Georgetown. We did a boat trip on Lake Travis with them, and San Antonio, and several of San Antonio's members joined us for our San Diego trip.
Every year, the clubs around the world send information to the headquarters in Atlanta in order to plan future journeys, normally a couple of years ahead. The information includes their availability, hosting capacity, membership, preferences for time of year, etc., and any ideas for journey types. This information is then used to create matches between the pairs of clubs. The matching process will take into account the club's travel history, hosting capacity and availability, plus practicalities such as regional climate and national holidays. The matching information is published on the international website, and details are sent to the individual clubs for their approval and acceptance. Let's focus on one particular journey proposal, where a Japanese club will travel to Russia. The first step is for both clubs to agree to the match. Then each club will appoint a journey coordinator, so the two clubs can liaise with each other and decide the exact journey dates, travel advice, hosting capacity, matching ambassadors to hosts, any special requests for things to see and do, and the cost of the journey program. Note that the journey program fees do not include homestay accommodation. Homestay accommodation is based on clubs giving and receiving, as they undertake their various journeys around the world, either travelling as ambassadors or offering hosting to visiting clubs. Sometimes 2 smaller clubs will share a journey and be hosted together by a larger club. Some events, such as global journeys and discover programs, are designed for an international group of ambassadors. They will often have a specific theme, such as activities, crafts, learning a language, or a particular event or festival.
Well, this is a good opportunity. And this is a good opportunity because we have hosted an international event too for birding. Several of our members are avid birders, so we decided to set it up for everybody in the world to come to Austin and go birding for a week. They stayed in our homes, we fed and enjoyed them, we brought them around, and we became friends with them. And today, my wife and I still are close friends with the people who stayed with us today.
As a member of Friendship Force, you can apply for any journey that is advertising available places. These are published on the website and emailed to subscribers as a monthly journey catalogue. A journey begins when one club travels to stay with another. A homestay will typically last 1 week. There's usually a second homestay in another part of the country, or at a club in a neighbouring country. There may even be a third homestay, or more, or perhaps a combination of shorter events.
I'm stopping this now to tell you about one of the recent trips we take, which was to Brazil. And we had set it up so that we actually flew together in a group capacity. And we went to, first of all, São Paulo, which is a large city of 22 million people. And then we went to Maringa, which is about 650,000 people. And then we decided we would have a separate trip that we would do on our own, so we went to Iguazu Falls for a couple days and ended up in Rio. So you can combine not only your homestays, but with other activities as you want to, since you're down in Brazil.
There are many different styles of journey available, but most have several items in common. A welcome party. At the start of the journey, where members of both clubs get together and meet for the first time. Cultural visits. This is where we learn about a country and its people, its history, its industry, all about its traditions and culture. Of course, there's time to see the sights that make a place famous. Time with hosts is important for friendships to develop, pursuing hobbies, visiting workplaces, going shopping, or seeing your host's favourite local places. At the end of the week, everyone gets together for a final party to celebrate and say farewell. It's time for entertainment, maybe put on a show, enjoy great food, and maybe learn a new song. How does this compare with ordinary tourism? As an ambassador, you'll have friends to guide you with their local knowledge. They'll advise you where to go and how to get there, what to see and do, all about local customs and useful phrases, where to find the best souvenirs, and how to order unfamiliar food in restaurants, and how much things are supposed to cost. There are many ways to take part. Travelling and hosting are the most important elements, but not everyone has time to travel or a spare room to host. Showing visitors around for the day or inviting them for dinner are also important ways to contribute. Every journey needs someone to communicate with sister clubs in other countries. Or you could be part of the committee that plans an exciting program of events to entertain both visitors and hosts. Social events keep your club active when it's not involved in international journeys. Or you can just join in the fun of day trips, parties, etc., and get to meet ambassadors from visiting clubs around the world. Friendship Force provides a unique way to discover the world and its people. You can make friends both at home and abroad. When you travel with friends and like-minded people. You don't even need to travel. We can bring the world to you. It's easy to join, and there are lots of ways to participate. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation.
Thank you.
If you'd like to know more, why not visit our website at friendshipforce.org for details of all the clubs around the world, their journeys, and lots more. Well, it's goodbye from me, but remember, Friendship Force International can bring the world to you.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, our club also has a service project every year around the 1st of April, and we support the Rosedale Ride. It's a 30-mile bike ride, which raises money for Rosedale Special Needs Elementary School, which is right around the corner from here. And we do this by personing a food and drink station on the ride route. I am very much looking forward to this coming year because for first place, as well as hosting the people that are coming in July, I'm going to Boulder, Colorado for the international reason. And then in September, we're going to Turkey. Anybody who wants to come with us, not to Istanbul, but to
Costa Rica.
and then in November, we're going to Costa Rica. And so those are our exciting trips for this year. I'd like to introduce a couple of people that I asked to tell us about some of their trips. And Annette Stakowitz went to Russia, and there weren't many of us that did. So Annette, would you come up and tell us about your Russian?
Okay. Well, the trip to Russia was great. My husband and I, and after his death, I by myself traveled a lot with Friendship Force. You should see the little pins on my world map at home, all over the place. And I think we loved every trip. We also had people staying with us from everywhere, which we also always enjoyed. We never had a bad experience. I've been thinking since Sally asked me, I think the trip to Russia, which I took by myself after my husband's death, was probably, for me, the best one. Speak of trying for world peace. A small group, 6 of us from Austin only, wanted to go to Russia, but we joined a number of people from a Florida club and went together with them. We flew from here via Germany to Kiev, and we got to spend a day in Kiev, which was wonderful. It looked like a very modern, expensive city. Gosh, we had wonderful walks and meals all in one day. Actually, a little bit less, just a plane stop. And then from there, we flew to Rostov-on-Don. Rostov, I thought, would be a little city because I'd never heard of it before. It was a big city. It's on the river Don, way in the southwest of Russia. So we expected it to be warm. This was in early September. It was freezing cold. And it rained most of the time. And still, it was a wonderful experience. I stayed with a young family, a very young family. Yuri, oh my gosh, I know their names very well, except right now. A young couple with 2 little kids, ages 2 and 5, I think. They lived in a very small, beautiful apartment in the 4th floor of an old building in the middle of the city. They let me sleep in their bedroom. No matter how much I protested, they slept on the couch in the living room, and I had their bedroom for a week. They spoke very good English, even the little kids to some extent. He worked, am I talking too much?
Well,
Make it shorter. Okay, I could talk for hours and hours. Anyway, it was a great trip. We stayed up until the middle of the night. I got to meet their mother, and I'm vegetarian. She made a vegetable cake, which was fantastic. Anyway, on the way. Anyway, they're great people. I got home. We stopped in Istanbul, which was also wonderful. But I got home, and shortly after that got an email from them that said, we're coming to visit you. Well, after my husband's death, I sold our big house and moved into a little house, and I said, that's great, I'm looking forward to it. Well, they brought their 2 little kids, and we spent another week at my house. They're lovely people, so open to the West, so interested, and at the time, it still looked really good. At the time, this was before things changed. Thank you. Join Friendship Force, it's great. Sorry,
Okay.
Thank you, Annette. The main purpose, of course, of Friendship Force is citizen diplomacy. And, of course, traveling with the Friendship Force, it's very reasonable cost compared to any independent travel that you may be doing on your own. And, of course, you make friends with people in other cultures. But I do want to read one thing, which is our mission, which we say at every one of our leadership meetings, because it's really what we are here to do. And it's, as a member of the Friendship Force, I recognize that I can make a difference. I recognize that I have a mission. That mission is to be a friend of the people of the world. As I embark upon this adventure, I know that others will be watching me. I know that through my own example, to my own fellow citizens, and to the people of other countries, the cause of friendship and peace can be furthered. I can make a difference. Well, our own Friendship Force is a relatively small group of 60 members right now, and it was established in 1984. We host one international chapter and one domestic each year. And then we also travel to one international and to one domestic location each year. This year we're doing 2 international, to Turkey and to Costa Rica. We have quarterly parties and monthly leadership meetings, followed by a happy hour in order to instill friendship amongst our own members. And we volunteer. This is our community service we do through the Rosedale Ride support. You might ask, well, when chapters come
to Austin, we always have a welcome breakfast usually. And then we take them wherever they have indicated they want to go. Everybody wants to go to the LBJ Library. Sometimes they want to go to San Antonio or Fredericksburg, and we arrange transportation for them to do that. And sometimes we go with them. We also do Bob Bullock Museum, the Wildflower Center. We do boat tours. That's another biggie everybody wants to do. Barton Springs, we hike around Zilker Park. And City Hall, they have lots of artwork up at City Hall, in case you didn't know that. We tour our new library and the Capitol and the Blanton Museum. And the most fun of all is to go to Esther's Follies. And we usually take them to that. They do have free time, and the Turkish people really wanted to go shopping. They bought big bags to take stuff home because it was cheaper here than in Turkey. But we also do golf and hiking and dancing and listening to music.
And you might ask, where have we gone recently? Of course, we've gone to, the one Zosha and I first went to was Austria, and then we went to Brazil, New Zealand. Others went to Russia. We've been to Australia, Canada, England, Colombia, and where are we going next? Turkey and Costa Rica. And this is in about 6 years that we've done this. We have other social activities, which of course is our monthly happy hour where we get our members together so that we can get to know each other a lot better. We have quarterly meetings with a party and new members introduction parties that Sally holds. We go out to unique restaurants in town. And we do have our service support project of the Rosedale Ride. And we've also coordinated with the people in Georgetown for the Round Top concert. And this year, we hope to start a birding club.
Maybe. Okay. I would like to also introduce Luann Sledge, who is coming in as our new membership chairperson. I will help her. Will you stand up, Luann? And she has applications if you'd like to join. Our membership fee, and we also has brochures if you're just interested in it. Our membership fee this year is $40, which includes your badge, and then the renewal fee is $35. So we're not an expensive club to join. Are there any questions and comments? Okay.
I'm wondering about translators and communication.
I use Translate on my cell phone. When I was in Brazil, I stayed with a Japanese couple who spoke Portuguese and they spoke Japanese. And I don't speak either of those languages, but we managed to get along just beautifully.
Okay, the mic is on. I'd like to introduce Richard Halpin.
Thank you to amazing global travelers for coming today and sharing this incredible adventure with us. So, talk to us about security. I mean, you go to these foreign places, Turkey, for example, you hear all kinds of things going on in Turkey. Do you carry your own legal people with you, or you have lawyers back here or there, or bail bond fund? Tell us about the precautions you take.
Well, let me answer that about Bogota. Most of the people we stay with are, I would say, middle class or upper middle class. In Bogota, they have levels of people go from 1 to 6 as far as economic levels. I went with a gal from Houston, and the two of us stayed with a gal named Chela Pinto in her apartment. I'm not familiar with apartments. I had never been in an apartment this big. She had 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. And we each had our own room. She had a housekeeper that was living in while we were there. Doesn't live in all the time, but got up every morning and fixed us breakfast and fixed us supper and packed lunches for us, and we were waited on like, this was the most secure building I'd ever seen, because we knew that Bogota has, 8 million people?
20 million.
No, I think so. Anyway, it's a very big city and has a lot of graffiti and I'm assuming there's crime, but our building was extremely secure, and so we went out by bus to lots of different locations to see the salt mines and to see the one of the cities that was strictly a tourist city.
Would you like to go through the Australia?
Oh, this is Australia. We went to Australia. I went to Australia. We went to 3 different cities and this
is Sydney.
Sydney for about $3,000, and most of that was cost of airfare to the different ones, and we stayed with 3 different people.
We'll go to Perth now.
Okay, Perth was my favorite city of all time. I've never seen a city so clean. They didn't allow people to smoke outside of their own homes, and so there are no cigarette butts anywhere. They didn't allow people to carry guns, so you don't have that kind of problem either. It was amazing. I think this is where meeting the mayor, who was a woman, and you want to tell more about it?
So when we got there, we were honored by meeting the mayor. That's the main thing, that the mayor had a presentation and a reception for us and everything, because Friendship Force is very important down in Australia and New Zealand, where they like to come up north. I'm going to go back just one slide. It's so important to them because this is an actual park that is just created for Friendship Force there. And where Friendship Forces, when they come to join Perth, which by the way is at the end of the earth, if you've ever can imagine that, and they have a park where we plant trees, and they're building a whole forest in this park just for Friendship Force. One thing we saw there was gold, because that's why Perth exists on the western coast of Australia. You want to tell about the gold?
Well,
Well, this one thing, this is a 1,000 kilogram solid piece of gold that they had created when Queen Elizabeth came to visit. And so that's 1,000 kilograms of pure gold. We do things like, he was showing us how to create gold ingots here. And so he made it right in front of us. So we toured these interesting things in each one of the cities.
we've toured. Well, this was one of the zoo things with the koala bears, and we have toured tree farms, and we have toured wolf sanctuaries, and we have toured. This is a very interesting. We drove for miles to go out to see this. This is a natural rock formation.
I'm going to turn it.
And again, eating.
Wine.
We always eat. Wine and eating. It's always a part of Friendship Force.
So we have, this is what you have, a wombat, if you've never seen one, an endangered species. So we'd go to see all of their animal life while we're there too. And these are some of our members with a giant wombat. And we do interesting things, like here we're down in the City Hall Bell Cathedral, ringing the bells for the city of Perth. And of course we go to things that are of interest there, which is sheep shearing. And so we see them shear sheep.
And there's the kangaroo, the white ones. They're very unusual.
And next we went to Adelaide, and this is a sister city of Austin, Texas. Adelaide, that's in central southern Australia. That's the second city we visited.
And
And
there we are having hot cocoa or something.
as we're going to another wildlife refuge.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have just koala bears. And of course, meeting the mayor. And the mayor comes out and gives us a presentation and tells us all about his city and how honored he is that the people from Austin, Texas are coming to their sister city. And of course, we try new things, which is what's a billy bong. And to, you know how that goes, So now we're on the Sunshine Coast, which is a third area we stayed, and doing new and unusual things such as lawn bowling. And it's not just looking at it. We actually went there for several hours and did lawn bowling.
And I went swimming.
And visiting things like the ginger factory that produces half the ginger in the world, And of course, this is a beekeeper because they want to have bees there too. So presentations like this. New and unusual foods to eat.
The flexibility, because I like Germany, and so about where to go and whether to have the right accommodations for the exchange and attitudes about drinking and eating and so on. I wanted to go to Germany, and through Phil Forsyth, who was a member of this church before his passing for many years, I found out about Friendship Force, and I found out they were having a trip to Dallas. So I flew to Dallas, and I went with Friendship Force to the North Sea of Germany, and it was so wonderful. And I thought I never could do that, but instead of because I don't have a house to accommodate, they made me a diplomat. So I conducted a tour along the hike and bike with my lousy German to about 20 Germans, and of course they thought I was the cutest thing in the world. And then they took us over there. They were so friendly. They had the smallest bar in the world, and everybody had to have a drink. You know, it's very hard to say no to a German. But I tried to tell them I don't drink. I mustn't drink. And finally I told them, it makes me sick, and they accepted that. So I'm talking about flexibility and how much fun it is. So you can always get around whatever you think is not going to work, you know, and so affordably. I was able to go for next to nothing. Thank you.
So, and here we have beautiful things on the West Coast there. We stayed in lovely places while we were there, in people's homes. And you see the wildlife these are kookaburras, just sitting up in the tree above us. And finally, of course, at the end of every journey, we have a goodbye party with plenty of food and drink and good nature. And these people are actually going to come see us this year in May. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else questions?
From Del Beulah.
Thank you for the presentation. Pat and I worked with the American Host Program in Dallas for almost 20 years. I didn't realize this particular program was available in Austin, and we'll be very interested. My question, I guess, is there some kind of a subgroup of this that connects Democrats and Republicans so that they can learn how to talk to each other?
Well, you missed the part of the presentation that says we're not political and we're not religious.
And when we went to New Zealand, that was when Obama got elected, and the family that I was with had Skype, and they could get one channel, which happened to be Fox. And that was what we were watching. And that's almost the only time that there was any politics involved.
Look, if you'll come down here. If you'll come down here. Thank you.
Hello. You mentioned that we don't get political, but got a secret. When the Iowa people came, we talked politics. We found out they thought exactly the same way we did.
Well,
That's Ed Sudge.
it's very interesting because we are not political, but indeed we find our hosts are certain ways, and we find synergy in that. Well, I will give a little story. We went out to San Diego and stayed with this lovely couple out there, and the first thing we do is we walk in their kitchen, and they have a big poster that says Hillary for jail 2016, and we knew we were not talking politics on this trip.
Great presentation, thank you. You want to talk, please, leading question, if you'll indulge me. Leadership opportunities regionally, nationally, and internationally at Friendship Force.
That's the question.
The question is that there are leadership opportunities in Friendship Force. One of our members belongs to goes to all the international things and just loves it because she keeps running into people she's met before and knows. Kay Bender.
Mhm.
And I guess she's our regional representative.
So we show about international trips, right? But we also do domestic trips. And this is something for somebody who doesn't really want to go too far. I'll just show you here a little bit about Washington State. We
did this last September.
And the first thing we do, of course, we have a welcome party when we get off the plane. We flew into Portland, Oregon. And then we go over and we go up the upper Columbia River to see the sights up there. And then
That's the big falls.
of course,
and there's
the big thing
Bigfoot.
there is Mount St. Helens, because Mount St. Helens has really destroyed all that part of the state. So also a big thing there is Bigfoot. And so they have this, as we're touring Mount St. Helens, they have the Bigfoot display. Oops, sorry. This is a lake that was created by Mount St. Helen when it had totally destroyed the area. This lake didn't exist before that. As you can see here, it used to be a beautiful mountain, and then it was a vast wasteland after that. All of the trees, because their economy is based on forestry, all of the trees were devastated, and they had to mobilize immediately to try to harvest all these trees before they just go to waste and rot. So this is how we had lectures by the people who actually had their emergency plans for the city. So the locals tell you everything about what's going on there as we have food and drink and having a great time with them. Then we go to things like, this is a farm for trees, and we get a lecture on that, and we go through, and then of course go through all the fields and vehicles. And so this is the kind of thing that you don't do when you're just a tourist going to a place. You don't have these opportunities. We'd go to the cultural things, which would be, this is a Native American longhouse. It's sort of like a community, and it was run by Chief Billy. Now, Chief Billy is 92 years old. He built this longhouse. He's cut all the wood in here. And when we got there, our host said, don't ask him any questions because he never shuts up. And indeed, she was right. He just talked and talked and talked. And so after that, we went to this Stewart Market, which is tucked away in the middle of town, little tiny town. In this, he's created a whole environment of past history of Americana. You go into his market, have anything you want, you can't pay for it. And these places you just would never find on your own.
He had a little train that ran around and around too in there, and the ice cream was free.
And Lewis and Clark were down on the Columbia River, so we went to visit the Lewis and Clark camp, and we get the private tour that had been arranged for us. This is Astoria, the first settlement in the West Coast, and we stayed there for a night and went to a play that night. And then, of course, they had, the locals had this trolley that they had renovated. And we take the trolley trip and the tour. This is the kind of things that you actually do when you're there. And then, of course, the goodbye dinner. And the goodbye dinner, since they're on the coast, it's a crab feast. So we have that at somebody's house in their backyard. Then we get transported to a focal point where we met with another group from the north in Olympia, and they brought us to theirs. They had a local speaker there. Her family had first settled that area, and she acted in character for this. We went to a wolf. This is all in a couple days. We went to a wolf preserve and to another longhouse because it's very strong in the Northwest. We had local talent telling us songs and dance from the Native Americans. And what trip is complete without a boat trip? So we get on the USS Virginia, and this is Mount Rainier. And of course, since it's the capital, we visited their capital.
So I have a question. I'm Carolyn Grimminger, and I still work, and I'm kind of tied to Austin, but I would love to find out if there's opportunities to get involved, like when people come here.
Yes.
Can I just sign up and join and then help out? I remember years ago when Friendship Force was here, we had people come to a Paradox Players production. I could host people in my house. Is that possible if you're not traveling?
Absolutely. We would love to have you as a member. There's someone, Carolyn's going to bring you the mic.
If you'll stand up.
Can you give me a ballpark idea of the cost for the international travel?
Well, there's usually about $100 cost that goes to Atlanta to cover their fee. And then there's a cost that we pay to the club that we're going to. Like we went to Manchester, England, and they asked for enough money to cover the things that they were planning for us to get.
About $200.
About $200. And then the other cost is that you're requested to take your host out to dinner. So you figure in a dinner cost, which I have found always runs under $100. And then your transportation. So, as I said, when I went to Australia, despite going to 3 different places, it wasn't much over $3,000. And we stayed 3 weeks, close to 3 weeks.
Yeah, so just to, but you realize that, of course, you're staying in somebody's home, you're not paying for that. They feed you breakfast and dinner, and you're not paying for that. You know, there are all these wonderful things, but of course, in return, when they come here, they're staying in our home. So we feed them. We feed them breakfast, and we make sure that they're well fed the entire time they're here. That $200 that you give the club, it's for entry fees and maybe some lunches that you're going to have. So it's a very economical way, but we don't want to press that because we have a mission here. You know, it's fabulous that it's inexpensive, but our mission really is to make peace and understanding around the world.
One benefit that I have found through the years, I have a lot of pen pals all over the world. I communicate with a gal in New Zealand, and we talk about our gardens. She had the most beautiful, and the name escapes me, nasturtium garden, and we started planting them, and we found out that they actually grow here in Texas. So we send pictures to each other. I communicate with the gals in Brazil, Iracema, who did not speak a word of English, and we had a kind of a funny incident where we totally misunderstood and missed out on a luncheon out. But anyway, I communicate with her. We send pictures. I communicate with the gal in Maringá, and also in, well, I can't think of it right now. Oh yeah, well, Santa Rosa. We became very fast friends. So that is part of it. There are too many to, you can't be friends with everybody, but you find one that you have a lot of common interests in. We had bird watching, and we take our friends out, or our ambassadors out, and so we still communicate. So that is one aspect. Not everybody gets a house guest like Ned did for a whole week, but some actually do. Rudy, remember Rudy when he was here? Mm-hmm. We met him in Austria, and he came up, and he came to Joe, and then split his time with us and stayed with us for several days. So that is the fun part of it.
Thank you very much, Zosha. That was Zosha Hunt.
Hi, Richard Halpin here at the church, and I'm curious about this global peace initiative that your mission is. Could you tell us more about encounters you've had with people from other countries where you talk about peace and where that goes?
The Global Austin was brought in by Anita Knight, who some of you may know, and we had the diplomats from Peru who were coming to Austin, and we put them up in our homes and took them to Barton Springs and to Black's Barbecue and places like that. And they covered our costs. So we have been interested in doing this more. They were here looking at, I think it was child abuse, not child abuse, but
Yes, that was it.
It was
In their own home country. It was
right,
a conference.
and they were here for a conference and things.
But, Richard, to address your question, we're doing a very small part here. It's what we individually can do to try to make this world a better place, to make friends overseas, that those people will have a better understanding of us, that we are not what they read in the newspaper. We are humans just like them. And it's this cultural exchange that we have that is really the, kind of starting of world peace, that we understand each other better.
The citizen diplomacy.
Hi, Dale Beulah. Again, I'm curious, with traveling around the world, there must be all kinds of conditions related to climate change. I read last year that in Australia it was like 130 degrees and people were just dropping dead. Are you finding that because of climate you have to adjust some of your visits because either of sea level rise or wildfires, things like that we never used to have to worry about?
I think that the main people in Atlanta, the international people, look at that and deal with that, and it's not up to us.
Well, and then again, the problem with climate change is people's awareness. So you go to Bogota, you hear about climate change just a little bit, but it's not truly affecting their life now, except for people migrating from the coast to come into the big city and crowding the big city. It's the same. We were in Egypt recently, not with the Friendship Force, but it was the same way, that the coast is getting flooded, so people are flooding into the cities and expanding those cities. They don't personally see it, but it is actually affecting them.
And in Bogota, my housemate was wearing masks on her face because of pollution in the city. It was, if there wasn't a wind, that city is in a bowl surrounded by mountains, and there's not a lot of movement, wind movement.
Well, I would just like to add to it that the peace, our song, we do have a song which is "Let There Be Peace on Earth," and I have to say that we do sing it when we are, whether our own in our own country or visiting internationally. When we sang it in Brazil, I will never forget it. We were in Sao Paulo, and we were at the community center, where they treated us and these were just ordinary people. They were not business people or anything like that. Many of them were elderly. And we danced, and at the end, when we sang the song, we all joined hands. It was a huge, they had an orchestra too. Everybody, we joined hands, and there were people crying when we sang. They didn't know the song, but they got we did translate. We had somebody translate the words, and we held hands. I don't know, but they got a picture of Americans that maybe they have not had before. This is what we are. We're just simple people who want to have a good life. We want to have peace on earth, and it starts with us. It was just such a tremendous feeling. So anyway, that's...
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left.
Maybe, Linda, would you like to talk a little bit about Manchester, England? Since you were the journey coordinator for that one.
Well, I will just say it was, a very satisfying trip, just like any other. But the one really memorable part was we walked downtown. They always take us down to their town, wherever we are, the old town. And we walked right by the auditorium where, what was the gal's name that was performing and then had all this shooting 1 week later? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was, you relived it. And so it was quite an experience. But could I have 1 more minute?
Sure.
Okay. The other thing is that we haven't mentioned is frequently when we go internationally, we add on a tour. And so the individual Friendship Force members pay for that out of their own pocket. But it's just great. We did it in Manchester, and so we went to where Shakespeare, what was the name of that village? Right, and then we went to the Cotswolds, and we went to London. So that was great. And then we also did that in another one, in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
In Colombia. We went to a beachside resort. I know you all probably have heard of it. Cartagena?
Cartagena, yeah.
So, yeah, it's great.
Okay, we're out of time, so we have we're circumscribed by an hour, so we're going to end taping now. Let's give a big hand to Joseph and Sal.